right, it is the Lions Fan Cave Chat. It is Kneecap Biting with Smokin Jeremy B. I am joined by my nephew, Jeff, who's in Montana, and his best friend, Wise Bearded Dad, down below. You there?
You frozen, Jared?
Uh-oh.
I think you might be froze.
He's froze. Internet issues.
I'm good now.
Oh, there we go. All right.
He's unfroze.
Well, I wanted to talk about this culture shift that we're seeing, the friendship that we've seen budding between coaches, GM, and players, and everything else. And I'm even going to show an example of something we've had over the last 4 days. Look at here. Brad Holmes comes out to the presser on April 29th wearing a picture of Dan Campbell on his shirt. 2 days later, Dan Campbell wears a picture of Brad Holmes wearing a picture of Dan Campbell. And then just 2 days ago, we had Ben Johnson duct taping a picture of Aaron Glenn to his shirt for the presser. And then the presser after OTAs, you got Kirby Joseph wearing a free JMO shirt. This is just a sign of how well these guys are being cohesive, how well they seem to love each other from the top to the bottom. And I think it's a great thing for Detroit. What do you think, Jared?
I think it's really good, and it's like as far as building culture, like I think they're building chemistry, and it's like I love how the front office is acting like a legitimate team. But as far as building culture, I gotta see like a franchise-changing win, like a playoff win, a home playoff win, a division title with that. You give me that, and I can say the culture is definitely changing at that point.
It's almost like I can taste it in the air. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, having those T-shirts, that's just some fun, playful shit. You can tell that those guys get along with each other. You know what I mean? They're going up there with pictures of the other person on there. They're playing along. But kind of like what Jared was saying, the culture, the foundation's been laid. Dan Campbell and his coaching staff and Brad Holmes have laid the foundation. And then now they put some walls up with all the free agents we signed. But you got to prove it now.
Oh, yeah. It is definitely the prove it year. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and talk about the topic you wanted to bring up?
I had too many beers. What did I say again?
About holding the staff to a higher standard.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so I think where we're at with the additions that Brad Holmes brought to this team, I mean, I think it's time to hold this coaching staff accountable. There's no excuses. There's no excuse for Aaron Glenn to start out the season defensively the way he did last year. You've got plenty of pass rushers. Now your secondary's fixed, and you've seen what the pass rush did last year towards the end of the year. Aiden Hutchinson was great when John Kaminsky was on the field. He was even, and then you had Houston on the other side, and now you've got a pass rush behind it. There's no reason there should be pressure on that quarterback on every play. They should be having to get that ball out of their hand all the time. I don't want no excuses for that. Ben Johnson's got every weapon. I mean, geez, the dude's got all kinds of weapons. So not only Ben Johnson doesn't get any excuses, Jared Goff doesn't get any excuses either.
Oh. But you got to remember, the offense played at a top 10 level, like in what, all but 3 games?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all year it was a top 10 offense, correct? And he ended the season in the top 10 in stats. I'm not saying he's a top 10 QB because that's ridiculous. It's 1 year he was a top 10 QB.
Sure.
Do you agree with that assessment?
Statistically, he was a top 10 quarterback. I don't know that I would put him in my top 10. I put him in my top 15 for sure.
Right. Of active players currently, he'd be in my top 15 all day. Somewhere between 12 and 15, actually, is where I.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Go ahead, Jared.
I was going to say that's a fair assessment of Goff. I mean, actually, I think the most important person this falls on is Dan Campbell. I mean, we know the coordinators we know at least Ben Johnson is a coveted coaching member. You know what I mean? You could make that argument. People want him as a head coach. So in my mind, Dan Campbell, you have to be able to lead this team. You know, you got expectations on you. You know, people know that you're good. You know, you haven't won anything yet, so it's like you got to keep your team together. But at the same time, you got to get that achievement. You got to get the division title or a playoff win. Going in as a wild card just isn't an option. Like in my mind, they have to win the division this year.
Right, I agree with that. Be nice to have a cookout of the NFC North. Absolutely. Patty Grimes says Goff is getting 32 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 4,000 yards. I said, well, that's all right. He already passed 4,000 yards last year, and it was 29 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. So I'd rather him keep that 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So if he's getting 32, that means it would be 8 interceptions.
I mean, if he could do it. I mean, his track record doesn't really show that. Last year is not like who Jared Goff has ever been. But under Ben Johnson, who knows?
Right. Since Ben
you've
Johnson,
seen two different guys, right?
You've seen Goffs in year one.
Right. You've seen different Goffs with Sean McVay. You've seen a Jared Goff who was great, and then you've seen a Jared Goff who was shit and terrible.
Well, that also had to do with who was the coordinator at the time. You know, you saw what Anthony Lynn was running, and from my sources heard that he was running an offense for Tyrod Taylor, not Jared Goff.
Yeah, he was probably running an offense that was successful for him in the past.
Right.
He wasn't running an offense for the current team that he had.
Right. So, you know, square pegs, round holes.
Yeah.
That's what you saw. And as soon as Ben Johnson took over with Dan Campbell, you saw a switch flip in Jared Goff's play. He came back from that injury. Those last 6 games, he went 3-2-1. He had, 2 interceptions during those 6 games? And that was against one of the better defenses, too. But we still won that game.
Yeah.
So then you bring it on. He had, 7 interceptions all year and 8 games without an interception.
Yeah.
I mean, he played phenomenal this whole year.
Oh, without a doubt.
Better than what I expected. And, I mean, this next year, he's actually going to have some legitimate running backs by him, too. I mean, he'll actually have that scat back with Gibbs, you know, and Montgomery. I mean, day one, he's better than Williams.
A scat back that can stay healthy.
Amen. Amen. I hope he's as healthy as Kareem Hunt. You know what I'm saying? Kareem Hunt, other than his suspension, was pretty healthy. He goes, "Oh, I'm legit."
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs popped in the chat. That King SJ says the division should be ours to lose this year. You know what? You know, it feels that way. But I think we are all real hyped on the hopium of how we ended last year.
Yeah.
Real hyped on who we got in the off season. And it should be ours to lose.
Yeah. I still suffer from LPTSD, Lions post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Right. And let's go back to that. Remember when we had John Kitna and we started out 6-2?
Yeah.
How could
and it fell apart?
How could I ever
win another game?
Sean Rogers just fell apart, dude. He was that defense that year.
Yeah. Big Baby became Big Baby.
He was the whole reason they were 6-2. If he would have been playing like that their whole season, I mean, the guy was unblockable when he wanted to play.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. On the offense, we upgraded from Swift to Jahmyr Gibbs. He's faster, just as electric, and a better route runner than Swift ever was.
Oh, he's way faster.
Oh, yeah. Hands down. And then you have Jamal Williams, who, yes, set a franchise touchdown record, broke Barry Sanders' record. But guess what? Not a single one of those touchdown runs was for more than 10 yards.
Look, Jamal Williams benefited from having one of the best offensive lines in football.
Exactly. Benefited from having 4.3 yards of separation in the running game.
He was a good running back with Green Bay. And when we signed him, I was happy about it, but I expected him as a number 2. The problem was we didn't have a true number 1 because we had a guy who needed like 15 snaps a game.
Yeah, on a good day.
On a good day.
Yeah, and if you look at DeAndre Swift, even though he only missed 3 weeks due to injury, look at his snap count. He only had 3 games, and that was his good games, where he had snap counts over 15. Everything else was under 10 for his snap counts. That's unacceptable.
Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to disrespect DeAndre Swift.
Love
My
that.
guy could do some electric things. He can make people miss. I've watched him run into a crowd of people and then just all of a sudden run up.
Talking about Jahmyr Gibbs?
He's just not what we need for this team. Let's put it that way.
Look
No,
at
you
that.
said it right. The first
Delivered.
thing
How about that? Ain't that
yesterday
great?
it was with Coach Rod Moranelli. You know, he goes, pardon me, Marinelli. I said, no, Moranelli is right. He was a moron.
Yeah.
You know what? I wish they would have fired Marinelli and let Mike Martz run the team. I think they actually wouldn't have went 0-16.
Right. Jack Campbell says, I'm ready to break somebody's face mask. If you could spell break not like a brake pedal, I'd be happy with it.
He's a linebacker, man. He's going to hit the head.
He's already, dude. Crap! It sounds like he's already got that brain injury, CTE.
Yeah. He don't have to spell. He just got to knock the shit out of somebody. That's all.
That's what
I will say this: when it comes to Jack Campbell,
he's the biggest linebacker we've had since Chris Spielman.
Oh, Jelani Tavai was pretty big.
No,
he was huge.
No, wait, I'm talking about with talent.
Yeah, fair enough, dude. I thought Tavai would at least be like a high tower, like really good in the box, just a liability in coverage. He wasn't even good in the box.
Yeah.
Like the reason they drafted him, he wasn't even good at.
You couldn't even use him like God. What's the Patriots linebacker they've had forever?
Hightower.
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
we couldn't even play the run.
Right.
No.
Well, when you run a 4.7 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he only ran as fast as Tom Brady did.
God, everybody in the chat, every Lions fan knows when we picked him, it was like, what? Wasn't DK Metcalf?
Greedy Williams. Yep. Speaking of which, he's a free agent this year.
I haven't followed his career.
As fast as he is, I would take him over Will Harris.
For some reason, they love Will Harris, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
The coaching staff loves Will Harris for some reason.
I think Will Harris might be doing some after OTA activities with the coaching staff.
Who the hell is Ryan Poles?
That or he's got some incriminating photos.
That's a burner deal. Huh?
The only time the North runs through the Chicago is if they forgot to take their Imodium AD. Ryan Poles.
Oh yeah, North runs through all right. There's a lot of running on in Chicago. There ain't a lot of passing.
You know, for a city with 2 airports, I don't see a lot of flying going on. I don't see a lot of airtime. There it is. That's a better one.
You might have 300 yards per game on the ground, but you only got 115 on the air.
They're basically running the new age wishbone.
Ryan Poles.
Wildcat.
I got to say, Justin Fields has to prove to me he can read a defense and not throw interceptions to Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not trying to. Well, yeah, I'll say this when it comes to Bears fans. I'm not trying to be a dick. I think you're going to be good this year, better than you were last year. But last year you were trash. Let's be real. You won what? You had the number 1 pick. You were the worst team in the NFL record-wise.
The number 1 overall pick, and I know there's some teams that do the worst to first.
Todd McShay, why the hell did you guys reach for Jack Campbell and Gibbs? Because that's who Brad Holm wants. He doesn't draft who you want.
Hey, now riddle me this, Bears fan. How is it reaching for the best linebacker in the draft at 18, but you drafted Roquan Smith much earlier? You're going to stand there and tell me that
And
Drafting Jack Campbell at 18 was a reach. The top linebacker in the draft.
Where did Roquan go? 8?
Yeah.
10? 8, 10, somewhere in there?
Mm-hmm. And at that pick, was he anywhere near as good as Urlacher?
No.
No, he was good, but he was not. He was nowhere near that level. But I mean, to be fair, we are talking about a Hall of Famer. I mean,
we're talking about a guy that's in a class with Ray Lewis. Some of the fucking greats at middle linebacker.
All right, Rico Beard. That is exactly what I see for Chicago, a 7-win season.
yeah, 7, maybe 8. Maybe 8.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could get some wins over Minnesota. I think they could get them. They might go 50%.
Week 1. They might steal.
I think they'll split with the Packers and Vikings.
Yeah, I think because it's at Chicago, they could actually take that game. Oh, for Detroit, yeah, you've been hitting that negativity pipe again, haven't you?
What do you say?
He just said 7-win season for Detroit.
We have a quarterback that can actually throw the ball and it can actually read a defense. For a fact, we know this.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Jared Goff is the best in the NFL at, and it's proven by QBR statistics and next-gen stats, he is the best active player at play-action passes.
Oh, yeah. Well, when he had Todd Gurley, they went to the fucking Super Bowl, right?
He had the league last year in it.
Hey, I mean, maybe
120 in play.
Now, what happens? And what happens if we see this opening week? It's like that game with Mexico City when Goff was with the Rams and they played the Chiefs. What happens if we see that like week 1?
Oh, that'd be great.
But the Lions just lose. You know what I mean?
Emmanuel Mosley says
I don't want to see a fucking shootout.
A shootout.
I want to see
winning. I'd be happy with that.
A shootout if we won, but I don't want to get in this shootout with Patty Mahomes, and Jared Goff head to head. I want to see some running the ball, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, take some deep shots down the field, but run the fucking ball. Rely on that defense you spend all that money on.
Goff's already been there, done that. He's already won that shootout against Mahomes.
He had Aaron Donald too, didn't he?
Yeah, we got Aiden Hutchinson.
And James Houston.
Oh, come on.
And James Houston.
Come on now. You're talking about one of the best defensive linemen to play the game.
I'm telling you, I think you're going to see a much improved Aiden Hutchinson in year 2. I don't think you see the rookie slump like you normally see.
Where'd you see Montgomery is gone, Facebook user? What are you talking about? And then we got fake David Pike coming in from Detroit Lions from instead of for him. Goff is better than Mahomes.
Yeah, that ain't old Pike. I know he loves him some Goff, but I don't think that's it.
No, I don't think any rational NFL observer can say that with a straight face.
Yeah.
That being said, OTAs have been underway. We saw a little tiff happen yesterday in the heat. Tamo ran a wrong route. Goff threw the pass to a bad spot. It was picked off. He got upset. They got into a little shouting match, and that was about it. But that's against a guy in his first offseason. And he's going to make a rookie mistake in his first offseason. I don't care what anybody says. And tempers are high when temperatures are high because you're frustrated, you're mad, the sweat's in your eyes. Shit goes wrong, you blow up a little bit. Guess what? They were still walked into the Chicago O-line is very improved compared to last year. Go look at their signings.
Especially Darnell Wright. I mean, look what he did.
I love that draft pick.
Look what Darnell Wright did with, let's see, the Texans. Second.
Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Oh, look, and it's fake.
Go take a look at that.
Because he's got the wrong number up there. I'm just smoking a Newport and drinking a 40-ounce Colt 45. Number one, he drinks IPAs. Number two, he smokes Marlboros.
There you go. Man, we got nobody in the chat but fucking burners, huh?
Well, we got Randy
Yeah.
School. That's David Anderson. One of his nephews, I
What's up,
believe,
Brandon Q?
Michigan. So
Hmm.
I like that guy.
OTA.
No shit. Little bastards are already out now.
Other than that, we've heard that Jahmyr Gibbs has been showing out. He's been lining up at wide receiver, and that is why we drafted him where we did, because we already knew that James was suspended. We had to replace his speed. So what he's able to do, I stick to Chicago, 6 wins, bank it. Okay, that's fine. But anyways, what Jahmyr Gibbs can do with his speed is he can play at wide receiver. He can play at the tailback. He could line up beside David Montgomery to confuse people to say, oh, they're going to go a speed package, a pass package, or they're going to give it to Montgomery.
Yeah, you're going to see him all over the field.
And then you add in the fact you got Mohamed Ibrahim and the guy that came back off of waivers because nobody claimed him. We still got Katoan Thompson, the offensive switchblade he is.
I'm rooting for Mohamed Ibrahim to make the team big time.
Yeah, I think he can replace Craig Reynolds. I'm
What's
also
up?
playing Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm also playing a little outside linebacker. We run a 4-2-5 because there's very few outside linebackers in a 4-2-5. Minnesota 8 to 9 wins. That is I have them in that 7 to 9 win category. I got the Packers. I kind of got the Packers, Bears, and Vikings all at 7 to 9. Any one of them can win 7. Any one of them can win 9. It just depends on wins in between each other.
I mean, I think Minnesota's capable of winning 10.
Yeah,
They could.
I would almost.
If they have 9 wins and we're sitting with 10 wins going into week 18, we will be flexed to Sunday night. Watch it.
I mean, it'd be fun to pull their schedule up and to see. It'd be fun to pull the whole NFC North schedule up and to break down where wins, losses. But
Rico Beard is definitely being a hater. I can see Goff throwing 25 interceptions.
Oh yeah, good old burner. But no, Jeremy. To go back to your point about Goff and J-Mo getting into it, I think it's a little bit of two things. So J-Mo, he's got a little diva in him, but he's also a fucking playmaker.
Right.
He wants to make plays. He's got an ego. He's not an egoless player. This dude knows that he's a fucking burner and he can outrun defense. But Jared Goff's checking him a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Jared Goff's like, hey man, look, I don't give a fuck how fast you ran the 40 times. You gotta run the right route. So
Right.
I got no problem with it. It'll sort itself out. You got a veteran in there, Marvin Jones Jr. And Amon-Ra St. Brown. He don't put up with no bullshit neither. So it'll be all right.
And by the way, you see that video of Amon-Ra St. Brown at the draft before he did his pick? He's walking by in the Chicago. He had to walk past the Chicago Bear fans that were there, right? And they all they all looked at him dejected and head down and everything else. He looks at him and goes, "Boo!" Walks by the Lions fan and they're all cheering and jumping up and down and everything else. And the bad part is the Chicago fans just made their pick at the time. And they were just
what the heck?
So it was really cool to see that because that's a culture change too. Brent DeWitt says,
Yeah.
DJ,
I mean,
chill out.
they're showing improving.
A hot pajama party.
Yeah, right.
Okay, go ahead, Wise. Oh, he just left.
He must have dropped out.
Yep. I'm not worried about J-Mo at all. We had a top 10 offense without J-Mo and Hawkinson. Absolutely. I mean, J-Mo was a non-factor until, what was it? The Jaguar game? No, the Minnesota game. Minnesota game.
J-Mo was a non-factor the whole time.
Right. I mean, because he was just coming off an injury. He didn't get to work out. He didn't get to do anything. He had to.
Coaching staff limited him to what he could do. You know
Right.
what I mean?
And had it not been for a penalty, that end around they did against Green Bay was
Oh,
fantastic.
man. I know. Shit.
You back, sir? Oh,
He probably is going to have to go back outside.
yep.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It's crazy, Jared. I'm out here in the mountains of Montana, and I've got good Wi-Fi, and you can't even get none there.
No, you see, it's weird. I go 10 feet into my house, and like I don't know whoever built this house had put like a bunch of tinfoil around it or whatever, but I cannot get signal the moment I enter my house. And I have Wi-Fi too. Like I'll be sitting right in front of the router. It does not matter.
Yeah, shit.
So I'm like, oh, back outside. I'm like over here fighting these mosquitoes.
JMO will be fine, Rico Beard. Look at what he did for Alabama during that run. JMO is a playmaker. He just hasn't had a chance to show it yet.
No, and he's shown flashes, but that's the thing. You don't have to. He doesn't have to be the guy right now. As long as he's making some of those plays throughout the season, he's fine. Right. We don't need him to be like a 1,500-yard receiver. Be nice, but we don't need him to be that.
In 11 games, if he comes back and has 6 touchdowns, that's a successful season.
Yeah.
Because your average wideouts only get about 10.
Now, if he breaks 1,000 yards, I'll be really impressed with those 6 touchdowns. Missing 6 games.
Because that's still 11 games to play, so 1,000 yards isn't out of the.
That wouldn't be, if he hit 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns coming back, that's a really good season.
A solid top 20 wide receiver season.
1,000 yards,
and 6
with how many games to play?
11.
11
with 6 touchdowns.
Yeah,
that would be a solid season.
100 yards a game.
Right, and a touchdown every other game. It's not unfeasible.
He'd prove he's the real deal. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty reasonable ask too. Like if he comes in and does that, I don't see, like I said, how the Lions don't have the division locked up by the end of the year.
Right. I think they should have it locked up if they beat Minnesota in Week 16.
If they don't have the division locked up, I'm severely disappointed.
That means that something went severely wrong, which we've all seen things go severely wrong.
Oh, too many times.
Yeah. And yes, we still have that PTSD in the back of our minds, but I'm trying to keep it from coming out.
LPTSD.
Whatever. I still don't want to speak it into existence. I'm trying to drop the L on it.
Well, the L is the only reason I got it.
I know.
That's fair. And I mean, like I said, how that really changes, how that really goes away, you're talking.
Right. You are sure talking a lot of smack for a team that lost every game in the division last year. You went 0-6. Stop it.
Really, dude, the Lions were a few plays away from being 6-0 in the division last year to a team that didn't even sniff a division win. So you just sit there at your bottom feeder and just eat off the bottom. And when you actually start climbing the stairs like a big boy, then you can talk to us.
You just had the first overall pick. Come on.
Yeah, you traded it away. It was still your pick.
You had a good offseason, but that roster was in shambles. You had a guy who could run the football at the quarterback position, and you had David Montgomery. Oh, wait, we got him now. And then we added another fucking running back on top of that, and you think you're going to – come on.
And they added Donta Foreman.
That's a good edge. That's a good edge. It's
a slower version of David Montgomery.
I like the Bears offseason, which sucks because I don't want the Bears to have a good offseason.
No.
Well, when you got 120 in cap room, that's a mistake. It was George Bush Sr. that was in office when the Lions won the division.
Man, does a Bears fan have anything better to do than watch a podcast about the Lions?
Right.
Hey, he's over here talking about the Lions. It's like, dude, when's the last time you beat the Lions? Come on now. Oh yeah, back in the day, like you're arguing stuff from over 20 years ago. It's like you're like that old guy who references stuff from like way past like any kind of frame of reference. Most NFL fans alive right now don't even remember 1991. Get out of here with that.
We are way closer to a playoff win than the fucking Bears.
We actually won it in '93 too. We just lost it in the first round. But that's another story. But James Burgess is absolutely right. The Bears are still a couple of good off seasons away, but they did have a good one this year. Otto Graham is the best QB ever. And Facebook user, our defense is now set up to contest teams like KC. We addressed the CB position and linebacker to contain Mahomes. You know what's funny is Mahomes really doesn't scramble a lot anymore. Ever since he had that bad ankle injury where he missed 3 or 4 games, he only gets out of the pocket when he absolutely has to.
Look, Mahomes is not a scrambler. Mahomes is a more athletic Ben Roethlisberger. He can create in the pocket, and he can see when there's an open lane, and he can go for it. The dude ain't fast.
No, he's
You're not talking about Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson back there, but everybody has to worry about his arm. So they're all focused on that, so it's going to open up some running lane. I mean, we remember Matthew Stafford scrambling for some first downs plenty of fucking times.
And Jared Goff ran for about 6 last year. Just saying.
I think Jared Goff is even less athletic than Matthew Stafford.
And James Burgess agrees with you. Mahomes is a pocket mover, not a runner so much. Absolutely.
Yeah. And he's got a cannon, man.
He's got a cannon. I mean, you got to be afraid of what he's going to be doing down the field. That's, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy.
If he's got open lanes to step up into the pocket, and he can see there's nothing open downfield, everybody's going to be covering everybody else. They're not creeping up on the line of scrimmage. They're not going to be QB spying. You know, there's no QB spy on Patrick Mahomes. Why the hell would you?
I mean, he's arguably got one of the best arms I think I've ever seen. And I'm not trying to hype him up too much, but it's like you look what he's able to do. It's amazing.
Well, and from different angles too. You know, from different angles.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he's
like the shit that he could do.
You know, people praise Patrick Mahomes for those different arm angles, but fans in Detroit used to crucify Matt Stafford for throwing at different arm angles too.
It was because of the interceptions he threw when he was throwing from the arm angle.
I think also, though, too, it's the record they had. You know, if they were a winning team and it was working out, I don't think those fans would have said anything anyway. You know, they're winning games.
We were a winning team, though.
If we were making the playoff, that's a good point. If we were in the playoff, winning playoff games or Super Bowls, they'd be praising Matthew Stafford. Holy smokes, he can throw like an underhanded spiral, fucking 60 miles an hour to a wide receiver.
Right, James.
I mean, that Super Bowl win he had with LA pretty much cemented. Like, I think he's going to eventually get into the Hall of Fame.
I think he's not going to be first ballot by any means, but he should be a Hall.
No, he won't be a first ballot, but I think he'll make it.
Now, I want to say, now the Tigers and the Lions have something in common. Both teams have drafted a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I forgot they drafted him. That's funny.
Yeah, he was drafted as a shortstop, and James Burgess brought it up. The reason Mahomes can make such crazy throws to do it accurately is because he was also a great shortstop. His ability to maintain a base to throw from is unicorn-type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to describe it for sure.
And it's akin to what the Rams were without Gurley under Goff. Yeah, that's the biggest drop-off that you had in that Rams offense. That and the fact that, Sean McVay caught his girlfriend sending nudie and lingerie pics to Jared Goff through Instagram, so he
Well,
kind of got a little miffed about it.
who was the backup to Gurley? It was the bowling ball. We took we
CJ
we signed him in free agency.
CJ Johnson, right?
No,
Or-
we signed him in free agency. I don't even know if he made the team. I think he got cut. But he former Bronco during that Super Bowl run.
Thanks, CJ Johnson.
Oh no, we weren't talking about the 1980 or 81 one. There was one when Devin Hester ran it.
Yeah, you're right.
Called the,
God. It just doesn't sound right.
yeah, it was CJ Johnson, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the same year that we also, after we cut him halfway through the season, because that was the season when Matt Stafford got hurt in 2019. That was when we picked up Bo.
Bo Scarborough.
Bo Scarborough. That's it.
Yeah.
I liked him. I thought he was doing good for a little bit.
I thought he was going to be all right. Man, he was a beast coming out of Alabama, but boy, he just never lived up to his potential.
No, and he never lived up to that pick that the Cowboys spent on him.
I gotta put this off on, man. Those skeets are getting bad.
Well, pretty soon you're gonna get you a room to do this in, bud.
I mean, it's hard to.
Yeah, they're still in the hunt. Don't get me wrong. What does that mean? Like KC's gonna have a down year?
But don't you, James Burgess? Don't you remember we also did that? But it wasn't the Bears. It was the Steelers. It was 97, 98. Marnie Morningweg was the coach at the time, I think. No, that would be 2000s. Well, anyways, he won the toss and decided to kick because he wanted the win at Jason Hansen's back on the kickoff.
Jeez,
Oh God, I remember that. That was one of the worst coaching.
And
like I was like, "There's no way."
Wasn't that Cordell Stewart that ran it back for Pittsburgh?
I think so.
Oh yeah, the win game. Yeah, that was at Heinz Field. We took the win.
The most recent one I remember is like dumb call was Caldwell with. They didn't have people like they didn't have Calvin Johnson when Green Bay threw that Hail Mary. You know what I'm talking about with Rodgers and the defense he called. It's like, why didn't you have more guys back like just defending that?
Yeah,
it was literally
against the Lions.
Yeah, Hail Mary.
That was
that was Caldwell.
That was James.
I was looking for that back and forth type thing.
No, that was
Rodgers.
Richard Rodgers. Yep.
It was the tight end that caught it. The tight end 3 on the team.
I thought it was James, that other guy, but no, you're right. Now you said it, Richard Rodgers.
And the bad.
Why would you do?
Wait, it gets in that frame that they did of the overhead when the pass was thrown. What the hell was Slay doing in the flat? On a Hail Mary, why the hell? I don't care if he's a rookie corner or not that year. Why the hell was he in the flat to protect against the screen pass when there was 12 seconds on the clock?
You literally could have put Calvin Johnson back there as just a safety, just to play as like a. You know what I mean?
I was just about to say that. Do you not remember? There was Hail Mary. There was last ditch effort, prevent defense where fucking Calvin was on the field on defense.
After that year.
I'm like, I could not believe, like, that was one of the worst calls like Caldwell made. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me.
He also stayed with the 4-man front, which limited to how much he had in the secondary. Why didn't he go to a 3-man front?
Yeah.
But the past is the past. We've seen all sorts of things that cost our Lions games in the past. You know, we can blame the picked up PI flag against Dallas, but we should also say, you know, Zach Zenner only had 8 yards rushing in the second half.
But the Cowboys
Every time he had a third down conversion, there was a holding call, and 2 of them against our great Hall of Fame wide receiver, Calvin Johnson, in that game. We had 4 conversions that were called back on holding calls.
I'll tell you what, thinking about all the bullshit in the past and looking at where we're at right now as a franchise, it's the most hope I've had.
Amen. In a long time.
It's the most hope I've
Oh,
had.
yeah.
Most
In my
hope I've had since Gary.
I mean, we had Matthew Stafford and Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley, Calvin Johnson. I mean, we had talent, but we never had
A
the
complete
coaching. We didn't have everything exactly. We never had it all put together. And I feel like we got it there.
And Troy Gary comes in. He's a podcaster with Sideline Sports. He says, yo, and it's at that time of night where I have to shout out to the people who make my show possible. Number one, I want to say thank you to Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports, and, of course, my publisher, the South Florida Tribune, Scott Morganroth. I also want to say thank you to Gloss Negron, the window tinner from A1 Tire Cucaulin. Go out and see him. He does a great job. They're located on Old Cucaulin Road, just off of the corner of Euclid and Old Cucaulin in Bay City. And I want to say thank you to my guests and everyone in the chat. Troy King, SJ, James Burgess, Brian DeWitt, Quinn Cook, Joseph Host, Steve Bauer. All of y'all hopped in here, and it was great. And what's your parting shot tonight there, Jeff?
Well, I mean, stay tuned. Hopefully you'll see some more of me on Uncle Jeremy's podcast here, and maybe Jared and I will get something going here pretty soon. We'll see. Goal line, one pride, baby.
Amen. Jared?
As always, I'm going to say the same thing I always say when I'm parting out. Stay wise and stay bearded.
And I'm going to say what I always say. Try to be a better person than you were the day before, because that's the only way to make the world a better place. It starts from within here. Have a great day, everybody. One pride. And until next time, keep it smooth.